Hello, welcome back, everyone. I'm David with Ag Economic Insights, joining you for another chart of the week. And this week, I'm focusing on actually two charts, and we're looking at an article that we posted on AEI this week. And I should note that this data is part of a partnership we have with acres.com, where they have some unique data that allows us to create some new measures and new insights regarding farmland and farmland activity. And this week, we're looking at the number of sales. And there's been a downturn in the Midwest. Activity across the 5-state region in 2024 is at the lowest levels that we've seen, since 2020. You had to go back to 2018 and 2019. You've seen similar levels. This is an index. The index value of 100 is the average from 2018 to 2024. So you can see index values were about 90 in 2018 and 2019, telling us is that about 90% of the 6-year average was what annual sales were in 2018-19. And 2021, we saw a jump all the way up to 115% of that baseline. So a really big shift there in just a couple of years. A slowdown in 2022, and then a little bit of a upturn in 2023, back above that 115. One state really drove that. I want to show you that here in the next slide. And then, of course, we're back to 2024 activity. When we look at the state level activity, each state is taking its different path. The I states, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, they followed a very similar trend of activity. So blue, red, and green activity around this, 80 or 80 index, 80% of the average or lower. And then we saw a big upturn. Iowa and Indiana farmland values hit 120 or 120% of the average. 20% above that average there in 2021, and then they turned lower. Iowa activity here in the last 2 years has been below its 2018 and 19 activity. So Iowa gets heavily featured in all the farmland research, sort of a leading indicator in a lot of cases. So it's helpful to keep that context in the back of your mind. Iowa, again, in red, had a pretty big downturn, but then saw a spike up in 2024. Observed activity sales, farmland sales. Again, this is farmland sales. There's some details included in the article, but acres.com is the one who provides this data, aggregates this data, and helps determine some of these metrics that we're using here. I do want to point out Indiana had an upturn in 2023. In fact, Indiana farmland sales were not that far off of that 2021 high. So a bit of a bounce back there in Indiana. I think Minnesota deserves a little bit of attention here. Minnesota's pretty important for driving that upturn that we saw in the earlier index. You can see Minnesota activity was pretty low 2018 to 2022, and then there's a big upturn there in 2023, and then it settled down really quickly. So again, what we've seen here is, broadly speaking, across the Midwest, a slowdown. 2024 activity farmland sales was lower than any other observation going back to 2018 and 2019, but we're still above 2018 and 2019 activities. At the state level, it's a little bit of a mixed story. Iowa farmland sales are considerably lower than they were at any other time in this data set. And of course, Minnesota has really been part of that upturn in activity in 2023. But we've seen other states, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, have all had a post-2021 bump again. So a couple of those states had it in 23, and Illinois had it in 2024. That's all we have for this week. Stay tuned for more data and insights from this acres.com partnership regarding farmland. And until next time, stay curious.